Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Kind of a Bitch. Okay, listen, I'm doing something a little different. I'm creating a small, digestible mini series for the next 3 episodes, and I'm calling it the Unshrinkable Series. It's going to be a short conglomeration of episodes about the moments that we feel the urge to shrink, to perform, and to kind of twist ourselves into knots just to be chosen. And then also what it means to stop doing that. I know, at least for me, this is really necessary. This type of learning is really necessary. And I'm hoping that you feel the same. I've been in this season that is kind of about noticing or maybe calling myself a little bit gently, but very honestly, for all these little ways that I try to pre earn approval. Yeah, pre earn approval before anyone has even asked for something, before anyone has given me the what they need. I'm over giving before we've gotten there, right? And that is what this first episode is about. It's a moment that I caught myself trying to shapeshift, trying to fit an unknown idea or mold that someone else had, or that someone else had that I thought that they had, not because, again, I was asked, but because I wanted to be picked. So if you have ever started editing yourself before you even knew what the assignment was, you're in the right place. Let's go. I will start by sharing the story that started this whole idea of this little series out. Okay, this is how it started. So a couple of weeks ago, I got a message from a past client of mine, and this is someone who I've done a bit of public speaking work with, coaching work with. And when they reached out, they simply told me that they had a potential opportunity for me. And so, of course, I thought to myself, ooh, that sounds great. I would love to meet. Let's hop on a call. So that's what we did. We got in a quick Zoom call. We started talking about what they were up to, talking about what I was up to. And then, of course, I wanted to know, all right, what is this opportunity? Tell me about it. Throw it at me. And when it all came down to it, they explained the event, they explained the basic idea behind it all, and they explained kind of the idea that they were having for what my involvement could be, but they weren't 100% sure yet because they're not the decision maker, and there's a much bigger conglomeration who's putting this event together. They are here to help move that along, but they are not the decision maker. So realistically, they didn't know exactly what they needed yet. And when we were talking about it, I started thinking to myself, oh my gosh, well, I mean, this isn't exactly what I've done before, but I suppose I could make it sound a little bit more, or I could gear it more towards that type of person, or perhaps I could. And I immediately started taking what I know and trying to turn it so that it would potentially work for a different group. Now, I'm not saying that it couldn't work. That's not what I'm saying at all. We really haven't gotten there yet. It was before I really knew, or before they really knew what was actually needed. And I think what I started to get ahead of myself on is I do already have fully developed workshops. I know what they offer, I know what the value is. And for some reason, in this moment that this was happening, in this kind of idea phase where things weren't totally clear yet, I kind of pushed those to the sidelines and was trying to figure out a way that I could fit myself into this unknown unknown hole. You know what I mean? So I caught myself thinking, how can I mold my content so it sounds like what they might want? Because, like I said, this person was not the decision maker. There was somebody else. There is somebody else who I'm going to have to interact with to figure out kind of the next steps. But I could tell, I watched myself based on what I was learning from this person about the decision makers, that I was already trying to change what I offer and what my kind of what my focus is so that it could potentially match what they might want, even though I didn't have all that direction yet. I felt myself slipping into this, let me make myself useful or essential to this event or pickable mode. And it's not because I can't deliver. It's simply because I wanted to fit into something that didn't even exist yet. Now, there is a difference, in my opinion, between being flexible and being totally ungrounded. Okay. And what I noticed was that I wasn't adjusting because I got new information and I was working to find a solution. I was adjusting because I wanted to be wanted. Something that really came to mind here was this idea of preemptive self silencing. Now, this term is more often used in ways that especially women try to change the way that they are showing up to stay safe. But it can also apply when we are trying to edit ourselves before we say anything. So we're trying to again change who we are, or what we stand for, or what we give, kind of who we are before we even speak. And the the idea between that fixed and growth mindset kind of applies here, right? Like when we're operating from a fixed mindset, we assume that we are either enough or not enough. So we rush to be enough rather than trusting that we can show up and we can grow and adapt in the moment. Now, the thing that I thought of a lot here, especially once I got through kind of the initial spiral of how I really hope, when are we going to set up this next meeting? What is this going to look like for me? Could this change my whole life? Is this going to be the biggest thing I could ever possibly do? Right. I started spiraling into the idea that this particular potential maybe gig could be the thing that changes it all. I started creating a story around the bigness of this potential opportunity that, again, we haven't even gotten to the next step of it all so that I can understand what is even wanted, right? But me being me and overthinking and trying to, in a perfect world, control the outcome so that I know what's coming so that I can be prepared like the good Capricorn that I am. I really I was going so deep into thinking this could be it for me. And of course that created more and more spirals of what if I'm not enough? What if I'm not what they want? What if what I provide or what I'm trained on isn't enough for them? What if they don't think it's interesting? What if they don't think it's valuable? Whoa, 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 whoa. Right. And I think what I'm realizing is that when you shapeshift to be chosen, you risk getting chosen for the wrong reasons. Okay. Like you might get the gig, you might book the show, you might book the speaking thing, you might get the listing, the partnership, the client, whatever it is. But now you are boxed into something you aren't. And if you have been listening to my podcast or if you know me at all, you know that in the beginning of my career, well, actually, let's go back even before real estate. When I was a performer, something that a lot of theater schools, a lot of educational programs try to do is they try to make you more versatile. They want to make you as they want to give you as many options as possible, in my opinion, to book the right gig. But I think what that does in the process is it makes you very unclear. I guess I can only speak from my point of view. It made me a little bit unclear about what I was truly good at. So instead of focusing on the stuff that I knew was for me, I was okay with going out for roles that I knew really might not be quite right for me, but I could potentially maybe book it. And the problem with that is just like in real estate, if I go into a meeting and someone tells me that oh man, gosh, I'm just going to think of like my least ideal client, that they don't really want to have any contact with me, that they only care about the money, there's no emotions involved, that they don't really see the value of a real estate agent, and that they want someone who is going to I don't know, leave them alone. And also on top of it, they are going to ask far and above what the responsibilities are of an agent, right? If I walked into those situations and thought to myself, wow, this doesn't totally sound like me, but I am so desperate to get this client that I will change everything about who and what I am in this industry to fit that. I'm getting chosen for all the wrong reasons. And now I am stuck in a situation and a client and a partnership that really isn't going to fit me and realistically isn't going to be a good fit for the other person, because no matter what, I'm still me. You know what I'm saying? There is a hidden cost to the performance of it all. You know what I mean? And the cost here is your own clarity and your own peace. So I just continue to think to myself as I was spiraling, what is it about this particular gig, this potential opportunity that is destabilizing me in such a way? And some of it was that I was building it up so big in my head, but other parts of it were just that, you know what? I haven't been out in the world as much recently. I've had some of my focus on some other projects. And so my own insecurities about what if I'm not chosen? Does that mean that I'm not good enough? Does that mean that I can't be a good speaker? Does that mean? Those all started to come to the surface. And as I noticed myself trying to say to myself, I will change this part, or maybe I could create a whole new program, or I could blah, blah, blah. When you start to change who you are early, like so early in the game, before you've even gotten the clarity on what exactly is wanted, you disconnect from the part of you that knows what you're good at, that knows what you're best at, just like when I was a performer. And ironically, I think when you disconnect from who you are, from the thing that makes you you, from the thing that you know you are good at, you kind of lose that magnetism, that thing that draws people to you because you've blurred your edges. And I know if you are listening to this, this is not new. Perhaps you've done this before, right? You've done it in dating, you've done it in interviews, in friend groups. This is actually something I think about all the time. I'm on my TikTok, I'm on my Instagram. I listen to people talk about how they are changing themselves to make new friends, or especially to date. There's all these people online right now who are talking about how you should be in order to show up and be desirable in the dating world. But I think what's so scary about that, and why there are these terms like catfish and all that stuff, is because when people pretend to be a version of themselves that they're not, it is going to come out sooner or later. And that is going to be detrimental to both people in the situation. And what I also think is a little parallel here is that just like these creators on TikTok who are talking about how to be so that you will be more wanted as someone who's in the dating world, you are changing yourself and how you exist before you even know what another person is attracted to. So, just like what I was doing before I still don't know exactly what is wanted in this potential speaking opportunity, uh, I by losing what I know I'm good at, by pushing it to the side, I am potentially attracting an opportunity that might not be enjoyable or beneficial or fulfilling for me. And what's the point of that? You know what I'm saying? I think there's this fear of, if they knew the real me, or if I was really upfront or direct about who I am and what I can offer, they won't want it. And again, maybe it's because you're not totally clear on who you are or what you bring to the table. So you're trying on some hats. But the people who are right, the people who are destined for your real work, your real self, they need your real clarity. So that is what this situation has started to do. It took me probably 3 days of spinning, going, what could they want? How could I change? How can I show up to this meeting so that I can be as wanted as possible? And really, what I needed to do was pull back and examine what I already knew about myself, what the feedback I've already gotten from past workshops, the stuff that I know I am an expert at. I'm using quotations, an expert at, because if I can ground and root in those values, when I show up to that meeting next week, the week after, whenever it gets scheduled, I will be so clear and firm in what I am bringing to the table that even if it is not exactly what they want, I won't be swayed. Um, I won't be shaken. I won't be shrunk, because I know what I'm bringing to the table. Additionally, here's what kind of what kind of cracked it for me is, as I'm spiraling about how to be like the perfect speaker for this event, I paused and thought to myself, wait a second. Again, they haven't even told me what they want. They have not even told me what they want. And then as we've worked to try and get these things scheduled, and it's been a little bit hairy and we haven't really figured out a time, and it's now 7 or 8 or 9 days later, I realized these people are just people. This big event that they're trying to put together, this is a brainchild of theirs. This is their artistic process, their creative expression, right? They're trying to make it great. They're trying to make it meaningful. They are trying to make it look good for their team, right? And it softened something in me. I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm going to get on this call and someone's going to be like, ugh, why would we hire her? Like, she's just insert all types of kind of imposter syndrome language here. They are not sitting around judging me. They are probably trying to figure it out just like I am. How can we utilize this gal and what she brings to the table and her background and her experience and her expertise so that it can benefit the people who are coming to this event? And my best reminder, again, for myself, is something that I learned as a performer. And it was the idea that when I walk into a room, if I don't get the gig, before bashing myself and saying, you didn't do a good enough job, you didn't sing well enough, you aren't skinny enough, you messed up that one dance move, whatever ugly voices are in there, I always had to remind myself, you know what? If they wanted someone who was 5'7", I am simply 5'4". And that's not something I can change. It's not personal. They simply wanted someone who was 5'7". And usually when I pull that back, again, there's always ways we can grow. And if I did mess something up, of course I would want to take that into consideration. But a lot of times we never got that kind of feedback. You just wouldn't get the gig and you had to live with that. And so instead of turning inward and spiraling about what could I have possibly done um, to be picked, I had to remind myself this isn't personal. If they wanted someone who was 5'7", I am but 5'4". And there is something to me about being very clear about who I am and what I bring, whether that's 5'4" of height, or whether that is a workshop that has 5 key components with a coaching option that I do for people all around the country. If that is not what they want, that's totally okay. I know it is valuable. They might just not be the right customer for me. And last note, I wrote down a couple of little psychology notes here just for myself, but I figure I might as well share them since you are here listening, is that mirror neurons. Okay, this idea is when we project pressure. We often assume that other people are scrutinizing or judging us or watching us, but realistically, we are really just reflecting our own fears. It's that whole idea that no one is watching you the way that you think they're watching you. And these assumed expectations that other people are judging us the same way can drive us more than the real ones. So sometimes it can be a little bit helpful, actually. It pushes us, right? But they are usually not very healthy. So I have to remind myself, and I'm reminding you here listening, that the compassion for yourself and for others, remembering that I am just a human. I can bring what I bring to the table because I know myself, and they are just humans trying to figure out a beautiful event that will work best for their audience and for their people. Having that compassion creates space to return to a more grounded decision-making process. Briefly touching on the idea of standing in your actual value. When you slow down that instinct to want to start shape shifting, if you are like me, it happens fast. I start going, okay, how can I be what they need? How can I be what they need? I want you to stop, slow down, and get curious instead. Ask yourself questions like, this is truly from my own psyche the last week or so, what do I already offer that could serve this? What do I already offer? What do I already bring to the table that could be a potential solution that could potentially fit here? Just a question. And then, what would I love to do within this container if given the chance? It invites creativity and it invites an openness instead of a judgment. And I think instead of pushing your way into that opportunity with those questions, you become more of like a mirror. Okay. Here's who I am. Here's what I've built. Here's what I can do and what I can bring to the table and what others have experienced. Does that align for you? Does that make sense for your event? Does that work for the role? Right? Here I am but 5'4". Does that work for the dress that you already have made for this role? You know what I'm saying? It is getting very clear about what you are. You mirror those back to yourself so that you can help them make those decisions too. And I think that type of curiosity, that is the most generous thing you can do for yourself and for them. There's no judgment in there. It is truly just an exploration of how we could potentially weave our two wants together. There's this idea of the self-determination theory that I that I wrote down here, and the idea is that we thrive when we feel autonomy, competence, and connection. Okay, autonomy, competence, and connection. But when you shape shift, when you start to change yourself to fit someone else's idea, it hijacks autonomy and connection. It takes those two things away. So the idea of thriving fully, it goes out the window. So the more you stand in your truth, the more you are clear and firm in the energy and the integrity that you have to deliver something, whether that's again something that you are naturally gifted with, like your height, or something that you've created, something that you feel like you have worked to build a strong expertise in. Instead of trying to deliver what you think they want, staying really strong and true in what you know you can deliver and what you know as fact, so that it doesn't become a judgment. You don't judge yourself because you're missing something that you think they might want. So, after all of this, what I'll tell you is I spent about 3 days or so, 4 days, I would say, kind of spinning and feeling a little bit anxious about what am I gonna say? How am I gonna phrase this? Again, this is all based on some very light information. This is not super direct. This was not a directive. This was just an idea session. But after a few days, and I still haven't met with decision maker here, after a few days of sitting and thinking to myself, how could I do this? What could I do this? How could I change XYZ? What am I going to say so that I can build myself up, so that I can make myself sound like I am more qualified, that I'm a bigger personality or presence, that I have more of XYZ, whatever that sounds like. I was doing that to myself then. And after a few days of sitting in that mess, I finally said to myself, number one, the meeting still hasn't been booked. So I'm going to put in a little bit less energy into worrying, because the meeting's going to happen, whether the meeting's going to happen. And number two, I am going to remove the responsibility to figure out the solution for them before they've told me what they need. I'm going to remove my own responsibility of finding a solution for them before they've told me what they need. I'm going to trust that I can show up knowing what I provide, knowing the value that I bring to the table, and knowing the products that I already have to offer. And then I will brainstorm with them to see if those could potentially align for them. And if they don't, then I have to remember that doesn't mean that what I bring to the table, that the products that I've created, that the workshops that I have done around the country for multiple large scale companies, does not mean that they are not beneficial or they are not valuable. It just means that they're not the right fit for this event. And this event is not the right fit for my products. I am 5'4". They are looking for someone who is 5'7". A couple of invitations for you, dear listener. When was the last time you tried to pre-earn approval before there was a clear ask? What parts of yourself do you tend to edit or morph when you want to be picked? What would it feel like to pause, to stay grounded, and to let them come closer to you? You don't have to be chosen by everyone. You just have to be honest, to be clear, and to be forward enough to let the right people see you, recognize you. On the next episode, we're going to talk about the moment that you do get the ask, and you realize it's not aligned. We'll talk about what it takes to say no, not because you are not 100% definitely for sure capable, but because you are very clear. And that sometimes saying no can be the absolute most generous thing you can do. The more often you stay unshrinkable, the more often you attract the work, the people, and the energy that's meant for you. That is all I have for you today on our little mini series, the Unshrinkable series here on Kind of a Bitch. I will see you next week for another Unshrinkable episode. If you have any feedback, any questions, any stories about moments that you have tried to mold or change yourself to fit someone else's potential idea, send them my way. Wherever and whenever you are listening, thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.